Good evening. Perfect. My name is Arthur Smith, and I'd like to welcome you to the American Marketing Association's first Entertainment Marketing Special Interest Group.
This just in. The way we watch content is changing, and it's younger viewers who are now in charge of the remote. Hashtag What's a Remote? We decided to hit up the streets and campuses of Atlanta to chat with them about it. What are your favorite TV shows?
Right now I'm binge watching Game of Thrones.
Parks and Recreation.
Trash TV.
The Voice.
Team Gwen.
I love The Walking Dead.
Thoughts on the zombie apocalypse?
I mean, I recognize it, and I'm not fooled by it.
How often do you watch live sports?
I love live sports. It's more than just watching the game. It's kind of an experience for us.
Do you have cable, satellite, or streaming?
Well, cable I wouldn't have, but my apartment makes me have it.
I am an Xfinity customer.
I don't pay for TV at all.
Do you know what it means to be a cord cutter?
Honestly, no idea.
Is something legal?
Do you currently use any TV streaming services?
Amazon Prime. Netflix and Hulu.
YouTube is a majority of it.
Do you pay for your Netflix account?
Well, it was my ex's, and he hasn't taken that away yet, so...
Do you binge watch typically, or do you watch week to week?
Week to week, but there was this one case where I binged watched Orange is the New Black.
I honestly just sat there, glued to the television.
How long do you think you sat there just watching Orange is the New Black?
Probably 2 days.
2 days?
Yes.
Did you move?
Oh, well, a little bit. I moved a little bit because, you get hungry, you gotta...
Shower?
Yeah.
How do you watch Game of Thrones?
I guess not so legal methods.
Have you ever shared files?
Define files.
Like files of shows and movies?
Are you trying to get me arrested here?
How has TV changed since you were a kid?
Nowadays, it's a reason for people to go into separate spaces and be completely mute.
So what do you use to watch TV?
iPhone.
Google Chromecast.
My PS4. I have an Apple TV at home.
I don't have a television.
Like the box thingy, that I don't use that. It's like it died and nobody told it that it died yet.
I appreciate you taking the time and being here, and I think we've put together just a great group of people, sort of from traditional, creative, and sort of where the future needs to go. I always like to ask our panelists, which by the way, none of them are millennials. What do each one of you? What are you watching on TV, and more importantly, how are you watching it?
I have 3 kids at home and a wife. So I watch different things with different people in my house. I just finished watching all of Mr. Robot with my wife. You guys see that show? Yeah. With my kids, up until this current season of Doctor Who, we would watch Doctor Who together. We're feeling a little iffy about it right now. And then I consume a lot of our content because it's ridiculous how much Adult Swim and Cartoon Network stuff you have to watch to keep up. But my kids happen to like that stuff, so I watch that with them, which is weird. I have no separation between work and home at all. And then I kind of love documentaries.
Where are you watching?
So I do it all. So I like Hulu, and I use an Apple TV quite a lot. I use an Apple TV to get to the stuff that I pay AT&T for, so I use Uverse quite a bit. And so I kind of use it all. And then I use our apps quite a bit I use AirPlay a lot to throw Adult Swim app to my Apple TV. May come up later. TV is very hard work all of a sudden. You have to spend 10 minutes and go, how am I going to watch this? Which I think is a problem and an opportunity.
I'm a big fan of comedies. I'm watching comedies everywhere. I love Silicon Valley on HBO. Yes. I love Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt on Netflix. I love our comedies on Hulu. We just launched one this past summer called Difficult People, which was produced by Amy Poehler. And we launched one yesterday from Jason Reitman called Casual. So I like those. And I've been binging on Seinfeld a lot on Hulu. And then dramas, I was a Mad Men guy, loyal, so it was sad to see that one go. And in my house, there's a lot of TV on. I've got some teenage girls who are big Pretty Little Liar fans. I'm trying to figure out who A is and all that. And my wife's binging Scandal exclusively on her laptop through Netflix, which is a point of contention in the house. But I'm primarily watching through Roku and primarily on demand. And when I'm not watching on demand, it's only live sports or news. I don't watch live comedies or dramas, because why would you? I just time shift.
Yeah, and I watch live Bloomberg News, CNN. That's the way I get my news. I also get my news, though, time shifted with John Oliver. I just can't get enough of him. Live sports, tennis, Formula One, Premier League soccer. In terms of on demand, I actually like to go deep with Vice. I've got, older teenagers and some young people in their 20s in the family, and we just find that being able to spend a little bit more time with the subject is fantastic. And then I will admit to binge watching Empire with my 18-year-old, and True Detectives, the first season. Everyone was, yeah, I know, just the first season though, because I took 10 minutes of the second season, I'm like, no way. And the family was away, and I started to watch the first episode and just got drawn in, so.
Do you notice everybody in the room is cheering for different shows? So what I think is amazing what technology has done, right? We have this sort of theory at Turner called curl up TV, where I'm just going to take my iPad like in the soundbite and go off on my own. And I think it's interesting because I don't know if we've ever had these tribes around shows and the ability for technology like Hulu, like Netflix, like Apple TV, to allow people to sort of have this bond with their shows that people are literally cheering about in the audience. Do you guys literally have guys thinking in a room that are figuring out ways to create content for the millennials? And I'll throw that to you, Mike, first. And then for you, Mark, are you creating apps every single day, or people in a room to figure out how we can get this content to them? So I'll start with Peter and Mike on the sort of conversation of millennial programming.
We serve two different audiences. Cartoon Network is plurals, which is the generation after millennials. But that's not the title of the topic today, Pete. So we'll do millennials. And Adult Swim is millennials. And Adult Swim develops, no one sits around with a laminated sheet that says, here's how to develop a show to millennials. Adult Swim has a pretty unique way of developing content, and that is, or even how it brands itself, is it finds people it trusts, creative people who have a voice and a point of view, and it gives them free rein to do what they think is right. And so a person running a show, their passion comes through in the show, almost in a way that is probably irresponsible that we give them that much ability to figure out who they are and what their show is going to say. And I think it's the choice of picking the artist behind the show that makes it resonate with that audience or not. In terms of how we talk to the audience marketing-wise, or in terms of how we platform our content or any of that, we all know exactly the mores of millennials. We know they want choice and control. We know how they act with each other. We know how they use things to communicate socially with each other and use television as a currency to talk to each other. We know all of that. We talk about it all day long, and it shapes our opinion of how we should talk to them. But it's, if I may, at this point say, it's not all just about devices and digital and all that. What we at Adult Swim try and do is really connect with human beings. And so we'll do analog things with them. Like the stuff we do is like, we'll set up a carnival that's an Adult Swim carnival and people will come to it. Or right now we have a drive-in theater. So it's about connection. It's not necessarily all about technology for us.
You're not just, and then for you, Peter, Hulu sort of, really transitioning in the way people consume content so much differently. Is there an active sort of voice, what your market and what the audience is and the demos? Are you sort of looking to sort of find millennial content that they understand? Or again, is the story, and then if you build it, they will come?
Well, we're primarily an aggregator. I mean, we're owned by ABC, NBC, and Fox. So we've got all of their content. And we've got content from, 500 other content providers, including Turner, AMC, Scripps, Discovery, I mean, you name it. We've got 80 content providers in Hispanic and Latino. We've got Korean dramas and anime, so we're a big aggregator. And then again, we want to be accessible on the best screen available to wherever the viewer wants to watch us. When it comes to the content, I don't think we're looking through the millennial lens per se, so much as we're in the most recent, life of Hulu, which is, past 18 months, we're really trying to go for big TV. I mean, when we're talking about showrunners like Amy Poehler for Difficult People and Jason Reitman that I already mentioned, we're going for really, really big TV because in a very crowded marketplace, it's kind of hard to fake it. When we picked up the 4th season of the Mindy Project, it's another example of how we can take big TV and have it have another life with us, and that obviously appeals to millennials. In that case, it was such an easy decision because Mindy, the ratings on Fox were pretty modest for their first 3 seasons, but it streamed really well on Hulu. So when Fox announced they were canceling it, it was kind of a no-brainer. Like, it was the right show on the wrong platform. And we know, generally speaking, our audience is about 20 years younger than broadcast television. So you take the same content, put it in our environment, and you get a younger audience just naturally. Maybe it's because of the on-demand nature of the content, and millennials are just they're
generation
impatient.
being connected for so much of their life.
And the other thing that makes it hard to try and program precisely for millennials, I think, is that it's the most unpredictable generation to market to. People, the Gen Xers followed a lot of their parents' media habits, not all of them, but a lot, and millennials just, they don't care at all. It's evidenced by the opening tape. So the unpredictable nature just says, look, just make great television and market it like mad.
And I think that's it's a really good point. I mean, on the technology side, because you have so many more distribution places, right? In the old days, it was 3 channels, 4, 5. I mean, we were all sort of tied to that. I mean, TBS, you could argue, was the first company to create binge watching, right? So we did Seinfeld for 5 episodes in a row. We did Friends for 5 episodes in a row. And, now we're doing that with Big Bang Theory. So we sort of taught people how to binge to a certain degree. I think what's interesting is if you are a producer or writer or creative agent in LA, you have so many opportunities, right? You can knock on like 12 doors. You can knock on Amazon's, Hulu's, you can go to MCN, et cetera, et cetera.
I think we're going to run out of people to make shows. I think there's 400 shows this year. I don't think there's going to be that many more people who are competent to make a show. Like, we're going to have to import labor and writers from other lands to fill. This is insane. And then when driverless cars come and we have screens, we're watching TV as we're stuck in Atlanta traffic and watching more and more TV. There's going to be, I think it's a crisis, actually, that we need showrunners. I think we should start teaching children how to make shows in preschool. It's God's work.
But I mean,
we thought we were gonna run out of oil. We're not. We're gonna run out of dramas. We're gonna run out of comedies. We're gonna run out of complex characters that you hate but you love. It's gonna be a problem.
So Mark, if you're at...
I'm sorry.
No, I think what I love about that is it's sort of true, but at the same time, everyone in this room has not seen everything on TV.
No, you can't.
So physically, you can't have the time to watch every show. I just finished Narcos on Netflix.
I've never heard of it.
I mean, it's amazing.
There's awesome shows I've never heard of.
It's an amazing show, and I think part of me says it's the golden time of television because there is so much great stuff. And I think that the ability of kids today, my daughter uses iMovie and she can quickly create a movie and tell a story and do it quickly. I don't know, I'll wait on that moment. I think you're actually creating more of a farm system, and technology is accelerating the process that creators can get to the surface quicker than they did before. I think what's interesting working for a traditional cable company, you're looking at this, right? You're trying to figure out how do we stay relevant because we are the sort of the central conduit. Are you building apps? Are you looking at opportunities to make sure that proverbial, which I think it's way overused and people interpolate cutting the cord. I don't think it's a bad thing. It sort of makes us all look at life a little differently. What are you guys doing at Cox to sort of balance this disruption?
Well, The first thing to note, I think, is there are 78 million millennials, and most of them are all grown up now. They're 19 to 36 years old, 60% of them are head of household, and there's incredible diversity, to your point, Peter. So part of what we try and do is get really, really close to millennials. We've created a very consumer-centric culture, and we have the great advantage of having thousands of millennials who work for us. So we spend a lot of time with them. We actually get into homes with millennials, and we observe what's important to them. One of the things that's important is being able to surf through and search through this golden age of TV and have a personalized video experience. So a couple of years ago, we put a modern user interface together with a really awesome DVR, which is beautiful for binge watching, record 6 shows at once, and store 1,000. How great is that for binge watching? And then we put a recommendation engine in that totally personalizes what the content we tee up. And as we saw in the audience tonight, everyone's got their few favorite shows, and what we try to do is draw people in and let them get immersed and jump into the content and go deep. And what we're finding is by teeing up a personalized experience, consumers are actually, millennials, are watching more shows. They're watching 20% more networks and 40% more shows because the stuff is personalized and they're discovering stuff they really like. The second thing is we need to make sure we're allowing both time-shifted and place-shifted viewing. So that's why we've got second screen apps. And we're also looking at affordability issues, because one of the reasons young people cut the cord is, millennials had a hard time during the Great Recession, and they haven't fully recovered. And a lot of them are having to watch their wallets and their purses. So we have to think about new ways to package, as an industry, with our programming partners to make content more affordable. And we've launched new packages, one called FlexWatch, which has local broadcast channels, which is something millennials do really want and value, plus premiums like HBO and Starz. Put that together with a DVR, search and discovery, and a second screen app, and it works wonderfully well, and millennials are playing back to us. They're seeing much more value in that. And we bundle that with really fast internet, which is another way we serve millennials. 65% of millennials say it's incredibly important to them to have the very fastest internet. And you may have heard Cox launched gig speeds 100 times faster than the average internet. It's called Gigablast. And that's going tremendously well. So I think if you put OTT viewing, the sorts of experiences that Peter and Michael are creating, and you package that with blazing fast internet, we can keep millennials interested.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's good, right? So you're evolving as your company to kind of figure that stuff out. Let's talk about the second screen experience, because I think it gets a little sort of beat up in a lot of different ways. I was watching our baseball game last night on Turner. Cubs finally got to the playoffs. It's great for us because the ratings will be huge, so that's a good thing if they're Cub fans. And sort of trying to figure out, baseball is slow. It just has a natural pacing to it. So what other information should I be doing? And watching or getting stats or maybe highlights, whatever it may be. Or, quite frankly, everybody else during a break or whatever is on Twitter or on Facebook during those sort of windows of opportunity. How are you guys trying to package? Peter, let's go with you and your Hulu shows. Are you consciously trying to reach out to the audience vis-a-vis those sort of vehicles?
Yeah, when I started talking about my favorite shows, they said, why would you watch comedies and dramas live? Why would you? And I made that pithy remark today at lunch, and someone said, because I watch them live because I don't want the spoilers to hit me in social media, and they're watching with their Twitter feed. So it's the idea of social TV. So I was rebuffed by a millennial at lunch. So the challenge, I think, for us is that we are VOD, we're on demand, and so we're primarily using the second screen for marketing purposes and social outreach, and to find the tribes of people who love the shows. I mean, we market like mad on social to raise awareness for our originals as well as everything we have on the platform. So many people don't realize that they can binge on all season 1 of Empire. We've got it. So you take advantage of all the data out there, the rise of programmatic advertising, and the social platforms to find those people in those tribes and say, hey, we've got it all here, all of it. So, but we are experimenting, trying to figure out how we can use a second screen as the remote control. And once that's open, can you market to them at the same time, let them know that there's programming they might be interested in. But as far as real-time, like social TV applications, I think that's probably best for live viewing and not VOD.
Is there now a bigger push to say take the traditional marketing that you would do on television or on a billboard or on a bus depot or a carnival and basically find those influencers, those like those show, connect with them and use them as a place to promote your shows?
None of you should write down anything that I say because Adult Swim doesn't do what probably should be done, right? So Adult Swim, we're viewed 94% live. Our view, so that's better. It's a sports viewing. Why? Why is that? We love buying billboards. We love putting big weird art out there. We love. Our idea of how to use Facebook is send in a self-addressed stamped envelope. And people did. And then we just kind of stuffed shit from the office into it and sent it back. So versus like, hey, let's get with PewDiePie or whatever. That doesn't feel like us. On the kid side, though, we do that, Pete. We'll be like, hey, this person on YouTube, kids watch it. So for Cartoon Network, like if they do a game or something, we'll say, would you please review that? And that feels organic. But on Adult Swim, it doesn't feel right for us. But weirdly, we have such passionate fans, and I know a lot of networks talk about this, but Reddit and Twitter and all that kind of take care of themselves for us with Adult Swim. And our show creators are people who are very active there and do a lot of the work. And so we don't have to, as an organization, set that up. And even for the kids side of the business, Cartoon Network, the show creator of Steven Universe, Rebecca Sugar, is the Beatles on the internet, and on she owns Tumblr. And in fact, Tumblr does a trending, what's that trending thing called every week? Steven Universe, we have 3 shows in that every week. Rick and Morty, without doing anything, really. I mean, we do tend to it. But we're not like really plotting and scheming. We do what feels right. Rick and Morty, Steven Universe, and We Bare Bears are in top 3 shows out of 10. We have 3 out of 10.
Michael,
yeah.
if I were to give you $100 and I said, here's $100, go market a show,
How would I do it?
How would you do it? What would you take the $10, $20?
It kind of depends on the show. I still think I would try and use video in any way I could. So I'd either buy TV and I'd maybe buy it programmatically, if you know what I'm talking about, and find an audience, or I might try and do digital video, but sometimes I'm suspicious that gets seen, to be honest. So yeah, and $100 is, we sometimes do spend, I hope I'm not telling too many secrets, but we only sometimes on some shows spend $100,000 to market it. And that forces us to do really crazy, weird things with the money that gets a lot of attention. Sometimes we miss. But it's not about amount of media, it's about how curious the idea is that we spend it on. And then it kind of it propagates itself.
So it's kind of like what's happened, like the buzz has replaced the rating to a certain degree, right? So if we're all conscious of what we're trying to do, if Comcast launches a new product, if Hulu has a new show, what are the ways in marketing for all of our different products that we can create a buzz, something that's interesting and different that'll get people talking, and then how do you sort of consistently over time keep that buzz going?
I think so. I think people talk about it's because there's so many options in terms of buying media. I think the conversation has shifted to the media, and we keep trying to remind ourselves, it's like, no, what's the weird thing we're going to do? And that will it will create a moment, you know?
In your 2 businesses, is the shrinkage that we used to call in department stores when I was folding back at Banana Republic, and the shrinkage that we had someone walk out with, is that significant for you guys in the sense of, like, are you really worried about passwords, or do we know how to figure that out in a way as people are in social and sharing these great things about their favorite shows, but the access to those shows requires some kind of authentication, some kind of key to get through? Are you seeing that as a major problem, or are you seeing that as it's just part of being a department store and worrying about socks being removed from a shelf?
Well, at Hulu, it's a problem we tolerate because at this phase in our life, we want the brand to proliferate. We want people to be using it. So it's a tolerable shrinkage, if you will, that multiple people might be using the same sign-on account. We're getting $7.99 for a limited commercial plan, $11.99 for commercial-free plan. And those subscribers, the last number we've put out there is about 9 million. But when I look at all of our syndicated research and do all of, look at all the metrics, the audience I bring to market is about 25 million viewers. So we know we've got a lot of people watching. The other thing that's really interesting, in addition to just sharing accounts, is how many people are watching at the same time. I mean, a lot of people don't know this, but 62% of our audience now happens in the living room. When we started 8 years ago, we were 100% desktop, and now we're only 20% desktop. 18% is mobile tablet, and 62% is in the living room, and that's Roku, Apple TV, Chromecast, PlayStation. And when you talk about viewing in the living room, all of a sudden you have to think about multiple viewers per stream. So not only do we have multiple people viewing per subscription, but we have multiple viewers per stream, which gives me my total audience that is a much bigger audience than our total subscribers. And so we tolerate it. That's a shorter answer, sorry.
Mark?
Well, I think the more we build value into a particular subscription, the more we personalize the video experience, it's not so transportable. It'd be like using someone else's toothbrush. So I think I know, it's awful, isn't it? I think if we build a lot of personalized value, we build more walls that people want it for themselves. I would say in terms of TV everywhere, the cable industry is promoting TV everywhere, which is a second screen experience. It's fantastic. It's got live linear TV as well as VOD. And we're in the process, a bit like Peter, of continuing to promote it. Usage is up 20% year on year. And I think the more the better. And what we're seeing is with big tentpole events like the World Cup of soccer for women, or March Madness, or a season premiere, we're seeing the user base tick up, and it hits a new plateau every time. So I think, to your point, it's a tolerable amount at this stage in the game. I would say that we were fascinated to see second screen usage. 70% of it is actually at home. So it's people in other rooms other than the living room, watching their own sort of personalized video experience.
Yeah, I mean,
which surprised us. I mean, when we ran the numbers, like, whoa.
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys are both doing a good job where you basically sort of agree that people are passing sort of passwords around, but if the value is there, hopefully that's a marketing sort of opportunity for you to get them to sign up. So I think all of us are in that world, whether TV everywhere, what is the proverbial value that we can bring to the customer? Let's sort of swing it over to advertising, because it's completely sort of in a sort of disarray and disruption as well, because I think, again, technology basically changes the way people consume content, so advertisers have to sort of follow that sort of tribe of where they're going and where they're trying to do things. We see in the upfronts every year trying to get smarter and make it more dynamic and interesting and trot out these beautiful celebrities that sort of wave like they're screwing in a light bulb and then they leave and get off, and they're supposed to be this amazing sort of, you've been in this business where we all used to do these, and we still do. Where do advertisers spend their money? Where do they need to be? Where do advertisers need to sort of, do they need to be on Hulu? Does Hulu need to prove business outcomes? If Budweiser comes to you and says, okay, Pete, I want to give you some money, but I want you to prove how many cases of beer that you sold in the quarter that I'm advertising, and I want to see if that's, because I'm going to compare it to Turner and other places. Where do you think advertisers should be sort of taking their money and making these small bets, and where do you think it's the most effective?
Well, as the head of sales for Hulu, that's I might slip into a pitch. But let me start with the upfront. I mean, what's funny about the upfront that I observed this year more than ever is that the broadcasters are sounding more and more like digital guys, and the digital guys are sounding more and more like broadcasters. So at Hulu, we're rolling out J.J. Abrams and James Franco and all these celebs talking about our big TV, and the broadcasters are talking about all their data-informed targeting and this massive database and how they're going to stop selling shows and they're going to start selling audiences. With that said, at the risk of sounding like a sales guy, I think that VOD and what we're doing at Hulu, we're arguably on the right side of history when it comes to viewing patterns and the way audiences are consuming their media. And as a result, you know, our ad model is, it looks like TV in that we have half-hour comedies and hour-long dramas, and we serve 15 and 30-second spots. But we act like digital in that it's all dynamic ad insertion, very much an individual, targeted to you kind of an experience. We have a much lighter ad load. And for the marketers, we only charge for ads that are fully completed, which is a big value. So if an ad plays for 27 seconds and someone X's out, no charge. So we're adding as much value as possible with limited commercial interruption. And I think that's, again, to use my earlier word, tolerable to a consumer. They understand the value exchange. And you know, that kind of value is really, the air has come out of the broadcast balloon because DVR usage is so prevalent, and the broadcasters with declining rating points, they have decided to continue to jam ads in order to make up their advertising promises, which is just the wrong way to go. I mean, I read that Viacom is attempting to claw back some of that commercial time and give it back to the creators, which is a very smart move, but the commercial time has crept up in like MTV programming so much that no wonder the viewership has declined. So I think restraint in broadcast and television is really important, and that's what we're doing. So buy now, buy early, buy often.
Yeah. Mark, you know, there's this, Michael had alluded to it earlier, programmatic buying, right? So this is sort of idea of machines buying inventory, right? Sort of, does the traditional sales guy who takes the guy out to a nice dinner, bottle of wine, maybe even a particular hockey or baseball game, they get the RFP on their desk the next day. Do you feel like programmatic is here to stay? What's your thought on that?
Well, we're in an interesting position because we are both, one at the same time, a major marketer and advertiser, and we also have a media sales group. So we see both sides of that equation. I would say for young budding marketers out there, make sure you focus a lot on marketing science because attribution modeling and analytics is an incredibly important part of the marketing function these days. And the CFO has to be one of your best partners in the organization. So at Cox, we use a ton of attribution modeling, so we know the return that we get on every dollar of media that we invest, by audience, by product, by region. And yes, we're moving more and more of our dollars invested to programmatic. At the moment, it happens to be more on the digital side, and we're seeing fantastic returns there. But we're also looking at that across all the medium. And yes, the machines will be taking over. And there is a lot of algorithms being run all the time. And I think ultimately the media sort of planning and buying industry will be disintermediated by statisticians and technology.
So do you think that, sorry, you can answer this, both of you guys. What do you think the percentage of spend is going to be? I think the programmatic's up there at like 20%, 25%. Do you think eventually, like it could be 50%, where again, those days of the steak dinners and all that stuff sort of goes away, or it's always going to have both?
I think it's always going to have both because my experience in programmatic is that people still need to program the machines and make some judgment calls on which data you're going to use. I mean, once you decide on the data and the segments, you still have to optimize and read the results and again, use some judgment. And that comes with experience and expertise. So it's not just like set it and forget it and turn on the machine and everything magically happens. You have to have a lot of discipline to make it work. And programmatic is such a huge word. And at Hulu, it kind of means media automation. So instead of sending PDFs and emails back and forth to do a deal, once you get the structure in place and deal IDs, then the machines can execute on the transaction, which is great. I don't want to spend time, energy, and effort on transactional stuff that a machine can do. But to us, it also means data and data-informed targeting. So instead of just age or gender or geography, you can get into the realm of behavioral targeting, which is what digital's been really good at with display for a long, long time. And now you can see behavioral targeting happen in video, which is really interesting.
So let's talk about data, right? Michael, again, talking about the programming, I know the producers come in, but do you use data to determine sort of what shows and what you should be doing? And then maybe you can share with some of the people, you don't have to let the secrets go too much, but how have you tried to democratize the use of data inside your organization so that it's not the guys who are the data scientists that no one hangs out at, sort of the geeks that are in the back room. It's actually something that everybody participates, learns from, doesn't use it as the complete steward to make a decision, but augments it in some way.
So the way we use data is as a foundation for understanding the audience and audience behavior. It is never used. In fact, because we've sometimes gotten data that tells us something about a show that turns out to not be right. So we don't use it to decide about shows at all. But we do use it to decide who's an audience for this, or where am I going to find the audience for this thing? So we do some work with Magid. If you know Magid and Associates, they're really good. And they have a thing called Emotional DNA. And we like to talk to them about that, and they look at Adult Swim shows, and they look at other shows, and they look at other network behaviors, and it's nice because they come back to us and say, your competition isn't even Comedy Central. They don't exist anymore. You've left them in the dust. Your audience is more HBO or Showtime or Hulu. It's premium services. That's who you are. So we use data and lots of it. This is like a huge sample size, and they put these people through a very rigorous survey that's amazing. And so the data is rich, and we use it, weirdly, to pull human insights out of. It's really not about the data. It's about the soft tissue, like, oh, there's a human on the other end of the data, man. And I know who that human is. I never thought that who would like Rick and Morty likes some crazy, scary American Horror Story, we learned. Like, I would not have predicted that. I would have been like, oh, they're watching Bob's Burgers. No, they're not. So, like, they're really not. So the emotional resonance, and it's an awesome show, it's the emotional insight we get out of the data. And I did not study all the stuff you just told everyone to study, but there's people around that do, and I love those people. We love those people. So we don't really have to democratize it because they come and tell us stuff that are mysteries to us, the things we don't know.
But if they're solving the mysteries, and Mark, it sounds like you guys have sort of done that, right? You've sort of had to say, okay, we got to start looking at the data because people are doing things that are disrupting our audience. How do you tell people in this room to embrace data? How do you tell them to go back to their businesses and make it okay and safe and comfortable to understand the data? How have you guys done that at Cox?
I think a couple of ways. We've leveraged it, as Michael was saying, to become more consumer-centric around consumer behaviors and seeing the human insights. And I would absolutely agree. When we look at anonymized data, but viewing data, it's amazing how spontaneous and sporadic the passion points are. Because you would think that interests and passions would cluster, but they don't. I think that the second thing I would urge everyone to do is just ask for the data and make sure you're moving towards decision-making that is based on data. It's just amazing to me how many very big decisions in business are made on a whim or intuition or past misperceptions or past judgments and intuition and the gut that may have been correct 2 or 3 years ago, but is no longer correct. And when I look at recruiting marketers, I look at people who have a big heart and have empathy and can feel emotions and can connect with people, and who are courageous enough to go out and meet with consumers face to face, and courageous enough to have unique creative thoughts, but also can back up their recommendations because they've done their homework, they've worked with the data analysts, and they've pulled it all together. So it's sort of interesting when I look at, there's a tension right now for us. We're forging into personalized marketing at scale. So we're using an incredible amount of data. When new customers join us, for the first 4 months, we'll have this whole on-ramping experience with personalized URLs, personalized videos, and depending on what they respond to, which parts of an email they might look at, what services, parts of services they try, we personalize all the time. It's tremendous. And that is, in a way, programmatic.
And then more importantly, you're seeing the results too.
Oh, yeah,
So,
like absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep, value perceptions are increasing, early life churn is reducing, and advocacy is increasing. So we're doing all of that, and one of the challenges to my marketing team is we all hear about the 360 marketing campaign. Well, let's think about the individualized 360 marketing campaign and start there. But then there is a really important role for brand advertising that is big and anthemic and emotional and taps into stuff that's going on in the culture. And you need both of those things to drive demand and to convert that demand. And I'll give you one example, Gigablast, I mentioned that earlier. We said, wow, 100 times faster than the average internet speed. You know, we could tell people all the rational things you can do. You can download an HD movie in less than a minute. And we're like, well, that's a bit naff, you know? Isn't there something bigger? And we said, yeah, we're empowering our communities and America to be innovative. And who knows what great ideas will come from empowering people with gig speed. So we went out and we talked to futurists. I mean, all these fantastic ideas that are fairly close. And we made some ads. One was about 3D printed food. Another was about holographic games. And it all had a human connection. And the response from the marketplace was fantastic. They're like, oh, you're optimistic about the future, and you're going to empower us. You don't quite know what's coming, but you're using your imagination to give us an inkling of what's out there. And that emotional resonance combined with direct marketing is really powerful. But you need both. You need the scientists and the creatives. And someone last night was using a phrase, an empathetic innovator. And in my experience, you need only maybe a handful in an organization, but they can produce such amazing innovations that they shape an industry. So anyway.
The phrase I heard recently was a modern day marketer needs to be 1 part pocket square, 1 part pocket protector.
Well, again, pocket protector. I think I'll think
it's
about
140
that one.
characters.
We got to go to a leadership conference last week, Michael and I did, and there was this concept of reverse mentorship. Awesome idea, right? Where you find sort of that young person in your office who you like and adore, and you take them to lunch. What are the things, as you have gone through your linear to digital career, what are the things that you have done or can still doing today that you can share with some of the guys in this room and gals that sort of kept you relevant?
My strong advice to people starting in the business is to be a student of the media. You should read, there's so many great newsletters, and you should read all of them, and you shouldn't be vertical in what you study. You should study everything. You know, you might pick up something from the out-of-home or Hispanic or radio industries that you could apply to whatever it is you're doing. So I read voraciously. I love the reverse mentorship. You know, when I talk to other people of my generation who say, I don't even understand Snapchat, the answer is, well, why not? Why don't you just, it doesn't take that long.
It doesn't bite you.
And P.S., you can read about it, and I'm sure you know somebody who will give you a guided tour. So I like to lean into the new thing whenever you can. And if you're reading and leaning into the new thing, the signs of the times are so easy to see. I mean, the sign of the times that I'm seeing pop up with increasing frequency is virtual reality.
Yeah.
And, you know, once it's kind of on your radar screen and once you experience something, you can't help but to see it. So that would be my advice. Be a student of all media and just be ever curious.
Yeah, same answer. It's funny because it's this discussion tends to come with an ageism thing to it. By the way, I'm not accusing you of that because we're the same age and have the same hair. But I feel like it's like I love the idea of reverse mentorship, but I feel like that's like I need a young person as my genie. Like, and feels weird. And it's like, what's wrong with you that you're not just curious every day and like you have to wake up every day and be like, oh my God, I got to keep up because that's my job. And I'm not a coal miner. I work in cartoons. So I should be kind of into it. And if I don't know how to work Tumblr, kick my ass out. Like, if I'm not voraciously curious about it. I think it's just about, hopefully, and maybe this is, hopefully it's not about age and your brain starts to shut down and you get less curious. So, and it's about innovating. It's about seeing opportunity everywhere and not being threatened, as you opened up this thing about. It's not about being threatened by the emerging platforms. You can't keep it back. It's about finding how to express your voice in every single one of them, you know, and take chances and fish around and see what's going to happen. That was a hippie answer, sorry.
No, it's good though. It's good. It's like pay attention, like Meerkat and Periscope. Like they came out of nowhere, and it's like, all right, just play around with it.
Yeah, mess around with it.
Experiment, play.
When's Lightning coming out? You guys know about Lightning?
What's that?
That's right, Lightning, exactly, right? So what's hilarious also is that, and the Times put out a piece this Sunday about this, which is like a lot of where the digital and social media is going, is to recreate the communal television watching experience. Like that's kind of the purpose of it. So Twitter is kind of like, oh shit, our business is actually live broadcast TV. Like that's when we light up. So they released Lightning, which is going to be a new platform for watching live TV. So I don't know. Everyone wants to kind of.
Isn't Lightning the summaries of big threads, which is
Yeah.
mimicking
Who's
the
got-
Snapchat Discover?
2 days ago, what? Yes.
Right? It's
right.
mimicking Snapchat Discover. Yeah, moments.
Moments,
and,
right.
And they're taking a page out of Snapchat,
Snapchat,
trying to
right.
democratize.
It looks better, a little
Twitter,
bit better
because
than
if you're a power user, you understand Twitter, and if you're a neophyte, it's like it's very frightening.
Right.
So I think they're trying to make
To
it
combine
more
them.
accessible.
Yeah, and their stated positioning was for media events, is at least what I saw. But it is a better Snapchat. Look at it. It's cool.
We also heard this great line where, you know, you want to walk into Wyman Kennedy's executive director walks into work every day and just says, you know, I'm stupid. I don't know anything.
Yeah.
And so use your intellectual curiosity. You know, there's really no barrier, right? Like to me, it's no excuse. I get sort of frustrated even today when kids come in and they haven't, like they're sitting down for an interview and they didn't even read my LinkedIn account. It's like, what are you doing? Like why are you even here? How did you get to this point? But what's interesting is I think, you know, to your credit, you know, you're not a public traded company. You've sort of been able to be relevant. You know, talked about that where you're sort of empowering people with data. How do you?
Just some thoughts about staying relevant as a marketing leader. First of all, I think keeping it real. Know your consumer. And if you think you know them, go back and check in because they've changed. So get into their homes. I had the great privilege at Coca-Cola to travel the globe, and I went to the bottom of the pyramid and met with people who drink Coca-Cola, but most executives would not want to go anywhere near them. And you learn so much. So I would say keep it real, stay really consumer-centered, and figure out what gives you energy. One of the things that gives me energy is meeting people who are like world-class athletes, just brilliant, and in the different disciplines that they do in the different professions. I just draw a lot of energy from that. And the other thing is, I think, being enthusiastic as a leader and interested in what the people on your team do. Because when you get to run large teams, you can't possibly know all of the roles. But, you know, be curious, be interested. It's amazing how that pays back. And I would say, take your own medicine. So we have thousands of salespeople in our teams who get coached every day. And when I go and meet with them, I say, hey, this is a coaching session, except I'm the one being coached. You know what coaching looks like and feels like. So talk to me, helped me as a leader. And I think when you show some vulnerability and you open up, then you create a really strong bond, and I think you become a bit more sustainable as a leader.
Yeah, that's a great point. Here's a quick thing that we do at Turner. So organically, we created social evangelizers, and that's not patented, so you can go back and use it for your own groups. But I would do pizzas, right? So lunch, I'd bring entertainment and the news and the sports folks all together, and it started at 15 people, then 20 people. And you had to stay relevant, right? You had to bring people in that everybody would chat about and get other people excited about, or bring in an article or read. And it really took off to the point where now we have video evangelizers where we're talking together. So I think you guys are here because you are evangelizers in your own way, and you're learning great tips. And the AMA allows us all to sort of be connected. So really think of ways that if it's one person you buy pizza for, or if it's 10 people or 30 people, it's the same reason why you're here today, right? There's a thirst and there's a knowledge to figure out what's going on in this disruption, or if someone's going to catch them in that charger right now. But I'm being serious, really, really think about that, because all of us have to work really, really hard, have an amazing amount of endurance, right? All of us have had endurance to sort of tackle the big problems, and you may not be able to convince person today or tomorrow, but it is that endurance and that curiosity that you bring to each one of your corporations that can make this work. We're kind of on the final leg here, so I want you to really think this through. If you could be CEO of a company today, any company that's out there, what company would you choose to be CEO and why? Now, I don't want this, again, this is kind of internal, but I don't want it to feel like it's a career buster if you say, like Peter, if you said Netflix or something along those lines. I guess what I'm trying, the real core of the answer is who in our space is doing it right, and they're on the right path, and I wish that I can contribute to that company in some way. I'll start with you, Mark.
Yeah, I would say Google for me, because I love being around inventors and innovators, and I love shaping markets and communities. And I think with their moonshot projects, they're pretty wicked. It's just really cool stuff, and they're very courageous and ambitious. And they are both a partner and a competitor. As a partner, fantastic, do great things for our business. As a competitor, they're pretty intimidating. But I think if I had my choice, I think I'd be surrounded with a lot of young, energetic, brilliant minds, and that would be fun.
Okay. You don't have to answer, Peter.
No, I'm happy to answer. So on Monday, I would be CEO of Pinterest because I love what they're doing. I think they have such a big opportunity. On Tuesday, I would be CEO of Snapchat because they've risen from nothing into being so big, and it'd be such a fun ball of clay to mold. Yeah. On Wednesday, I think I would go to Oculus because, as I mentioned earlier, I love the promise of virtual reality and how it could shift everything. Thursday, I'd go out, and Friday, I'd go to Hulu.
Great sequence.
There's no replacing who's running this company right now, but I would love to work at Tesla. And I think Elon Musk's, I think what's cool about it and refreshing about it is that it's not about digital and it's not about media. And I feel like the country is almost talking a little too much about this industry and not like about gun control and other problems. So I did get political, but in a different way. But what's cool about Elon Musk is, we had a visionary, he went away, Steve Jobs, and then Elon Musk, to me, stepped in and is solving infrastructure, giant, big, complex, real physical problems, not media problems, not digital problems, not likes, not clicks. He's like, you know what? Transportation, energy, sustainability, and that's why he wants to go to the moon. That's why he's inventing batteries. That's why he's trying to redo transportation, Hyperloop cars. I mean, how fortunate for us that man decided to move to this country and work. So I would love to go there and just like make smoothies for the guy.
Great, let's give it up for our panel.